Totally. I think every person in the coaching industry completely undervalues themselves when they start, and they try to attach it to like an hourly rate because that's the only thing that they can wrap their brain around. They're like, well, people are only going to pay $50 an hour or some like absurdly ridiculous low amount, but we don't have the confidence yet. It's like we might be confident knowing that we might be good at what we do, but we're not confident that others are going to see the value yet.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets Podcast. I'm Pedro, and today's guest is Lisa Hammett, a mental fitness and wellness coach who helps healthcare and HR leaders reduce stress, prevent burnout, and create real work-life harmony. Her work spans speaking, coaching, and training, all focused on helping leaders regain clarity, confidence, and sustainable performance. After experiencing severe burnout herself during a long corporate career, she rebuilt her health and life and now brings that lived experience into her work. Using neuroscience-backed mental fitness tools, she helps leaders and teams break self-sabotaging patterns, strengthen resilience, and build healthier, more balanced ways to lead and live. Welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thank you, Pedro. It's great to be here.
I like to go back a little bit and rewind a bit, back to the origin story, because every coach has that moment where they look at their life and hey, you know what? I guess this is what I'm doing now. Right? When was that for you?
When I started coaching I'll just share quickly my burnout story because that's really what led me to this. So I spent 26 years in the corporate retail sector as a leader, and I reached burnout, and I felt like I had slammed into a cement wall. I was done. And I had ignored all the warning signs that I tell people not to ignore, like the tension headaches, which lead to migraines and, stomach issues. And I almost got divorced, and it was just not a good time. So one day I just quit. I'm like, I can't deal with this anymore. I just quit, which I don't recommend because it's hard to replace a high salary without an exit strategy. So it ended up, we filed bankruptcy, a little while later. But fortunately, I had moved past that. And the thing that I reclaimed post that was really my health and well-being, because that took the biggest hit. And I lost 65 pounds. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to be a wellness coach, because I did it through, I don't know if you heard, a little company called Weight Watchers. It's changed and morphed, and I've not worked for them for quite some time. But what I liked about it is it was all based on behavioral science, and I love science. I love the mind and how our mindset really drives our behavior. So I went through and I was successful, and then I decided to coach people like myself. And then fast forward, COVID, and people were coming to me, stressed, burnt out, felt lost. I'm like, I need to be serving more than just the wellness. So I added on my certification in positive intelligence, again, attracted to that because of the science, behavioral science, and then life coaching. And then that's kind of where I ended up. So I would say the catalyst was myself reaching burnout, and then recognizing that if you don't have your health, you really don't have anything. And I just wanted to make sure that I could help others do the same and prevent really what happened to me.
Right. I like how vulnerable that story is. We're talking about bankruptcy like it's nothing. We're talking about weight loss like it's nothing. And I really think that's so powerful because you have skin in the game. You've been there, done that. You went through all the blockers. We see a lot of coaches preaching, but not really being in those shoes, right? So I think that's very powerful. And when did it shift? from COVID and you being your own self-catalyst from I'm helping people to I'm building a real business around this?
It really started during COVID. And I mean, I'm not saying this in any way to minimize how devastating COVID was for a lot of people, but in my case, it was one of the best things that could have happened because it made me just dig in and get super laser focused on who I wanted to serve and recognize that I can do this remotely. And I continue to do that. Clearly, we're out of COVID now, but that was really the best thing that could have happened for me and my business because you had the time. You were in isolation and I did a lot of networking online and made some great connections, via LinkedIn, and then ended up, publishing my book, and all of that just kind of melded together. But it really was the best thing that could have happened to my business.
Yeah, well, there's no shame in turning a hardship into an opportunity, right? That's exactly what coaching is. And we see a lot of people talking about that. So, yeah, no worries. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And on top of it, it was kind of a push too, also, because especially here when we were talking pre-interview, we were talking about like I'm from Brazil, so a lot of people had to do it, like the remote jobs, So in some ways, it was good. And I 100% get it. I'm sure the audience gets it too. You were telling me that then you started serving people, right? Servicing people and helping people. So after you got rolling, who are the people that kept showing up? The ones you realize, okay, this is my tribe.
Well, it's interesting because I never thought that my niche would become leaders in healthcare and HR. But as I started speaking and when I published my books, and then when people would reach out to me to have me speak, they were always in either, I guess you could say, subset or category. And they really resonated with my burnout story. Although, no, I did not have a career in healthcare or in HR. I was a leader. So obviously I can relate to a lot of the things that they go through. And burnout is burnout, regardless of how you get it. But I really have a lot of compassion for both executives in both areas because it's a mess right now. I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, but I mean, it's rough out there due to a myriad of different things. But, staffing, trying to, get quality care, not only for patients, but also being able to have the staffing to support. And then the constant changes in regulations and policies and AI, affecting both industries. So there's just major upheaval. And it's very hard to get qualified people in both areas. So, and then you add the HR leaders who are in healthcare, and it's almost like a double whammy. So, yeah, it's crazy.
Okay. I mean, that's the coaching side, right?
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about the part nobody escapes, marketing, right? So,
yeah, that's fun.
How do people usually find you?
How they find me is through my website, through referrals. I do a lot of networking, but it's predominantly through my website. I have a pretty good presence on LinkedIn, and I'm on there quite frequently, posting a lot of comments and content, educational content. So that's the best place they can find me. And it's my name, lisahammett.com. It's pretty easy to remember.
All right. I mean, let's talk business for a second. And so people find you, right? Through referrals, your website, LinkedIn, you name it. So they resonate with your work. And eventually they want to know what working with Lisa actually looks like. Everyone builds their coaching business a bit differently. So when someone actually becomes a client, what does that experience look like right now?
It depends. My foundation really is positive intelligence, mental fitness. So I always like to start, I make exceptions based on a client need, but I always like to start with an 8-week course in positive intelligence. So so we're on the same playing field, so to speak. And what this does is it helps identify those negative thought patterns that are driving the dysfunctional behavior in that individual that maybe is creating difficulties promoting in an organization, or maybe they have they're burnt out or they just need some kind of transition plan. It makes them recognize what is really preventing them from moving forward. So, and then we're kind of on a common ground. And it's really an operating system. That's why I love so much about it, because you can apply it to all different areas, whether you're in leadership or communication. If it's a relationship challenge, that you have, it's productivity based. Productivity is huge and communication are both huge for leaders. So we do that. And then oftentimes they continue. And then we do a lot of work on creating visions and really understanding crystal clear vision of where they want to move forward. Because oftentimes they just know they need a change. They're like, I have no clue how I'm going to go about doing this. So that often is the second component. And I've helped a lot of people transition into different either positions within their organization, outside of their organization, start their own business. And I'm not a career coach per se, but I do have a good network of people that somebody needs to have their LinkedIn profile overhauled or, resumes or what have you. I can get them connected, but it's really helping them solidify what it is that they want and how do you go out and get it.
I mean, your work seems pretty hands-on, right? On creating that vision, the fact that you mentioned it sounds like a custom experience overall.
Mm-hmm.
So
It is.
how do you think about capacity? So don't stretch yourself too thin.
How I don't stretch myself too thin?
I mean, how do you think about it today, right? Because we only have 24 hours in the day. You're telling me about a custom experience. What I'm trying to understand is how do you plan on solving the capacity? I'm not even calling it an issue because everyone has it, but so you don't stretch yourself too thin.
I have a schedule or a routine, and I'm a firm believer of routines. Starting my day a certain way will not only make me the most productive, but will keep me in the right headspace. So, I wake up usually between 5:30, 6, and I've got, motivational work and meditation work that I do. And then I usually take an hour walk. And then when I come back, I'm eating, doing devotional reading, other things. And then I get ready for my day and I start my day usually around 9 a.m. But I work in blocks of time and I'm really good at prioritizing and putting on alerts, taking them off the phone and just having that protected time. And we talk about this a lot when people coach with me, if they feel like they're just spiraling and they don't have enough time in the day to do these things. And it's really pretty simplistic when you break it down. And it's things that we all know, but we just don't do because we allow all these stressors to just blow up our brain. And then we stall. We just feel like our schedule is controlling us. We feel like we just have no ability to do what we want often because we're always serving other people. And, that's in my experience, that's a cop out and we allow that to happen. So it's learning to set those boundaries, to have really good time management, morning routine, start your day on a positive start. Because I'll tell you, if I don't start my day with that routine, then it's not going to go as well.
Yeah, I mean, simple doesn't mean easy, right? At the
No.
end of the day. So yeah, I get that 100%. One thing every coach wrestles with at some point is pricing and how to package their work. So it's a self-worth path, right? We're talking about service-based industry. It's like, am I charging enough? Am I charging too much? So how do you think about it today? And were there any lessons along the way that shaped how you landed where you are?
Totally. I think every person in the coaching industry completely undervalues themselves when they start and they try to attach it to like an hourly rate because that's the only thing that they can wrap their brain around. They're like, well, people are only going to pay $50 an hour or some like absurdly ridiculous low amount. But we don't have the confidence yet. It's like we might be confident in knowing that we might be good at what we do, but we're not confident that others are going to see the value yet. So it really, it means that we need to feel comfortable selling our value proposition. And that takes practice and time and, learning how to deliver what your offer is, and something as simple as just stating the price and then just sitting there, even though inside you might be going, oh crap. Well, you might use a different expletive, but it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be sick. I can't believe I said that, and you can't. You just have to just say, and this is my price.
You have
They
to be
will,
comfortable with it, right?
yes. And it takes practice, but ridiculously undervaluing yourself. And when because I talk to, newer coaches all the time, especially in the positive intelligence space, and they're always asking questions like this. And they'll say, well, I think I'm going to start with this. I said, you are so undervaluing yourself. And what I have found too is that you can undervalue yourself so much to the point that people don't think that you're quality, which is really sad, but they don't feel that you're really qualified in what you're doing because you're undervaluing yourself so much. And if there are people who are constantly trying to nickel and dime you on price, they're not your clients. They're not your clients, because when you fall into your niche and when you get laser focused and feel confident about what you're doing, I'm not saying every single person you have a conversation with is going to say yes and want to work with you, but you are going to consistently get in business because they will understand your value. And it goes back to that value proposition, how you position it, how you feel confident in making the delivery.
I like the pricing analogy and all the ins and outs that you were talking about, because that is so true. We see a lot of coaches struggling with that type of mentality. Now, I'm curious about where you're taking all this, right? Looking ahead, do you see the business going? Are you thinking about scaling, hiring, or is there a next step you're excited about, Lisa?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. So I published late last year my second book in the From Burnout to Best Life series. And I'm really utilizing that second book to create a training course, like an entry-level training course around it that's based on the book. And I'm kind of in the beta testing of it right now to get feedback. And then it will turn into maybe 3 times a year. I will do this. And then that will funnel into working with me more individually or in a team per se. And then, yes, of course, I want to scale and grow. And I love speaking. I mean, you had mentioned, I have the 3 pieces. I've got the speaking, which I absolutely love. And that can lead to a lot of corporate trainings, which I love doing that as well. And then I'll continue to write. I love to write as well. So, they all integrate very well together. And a lot of clients that I get who become coaching clients or who pick up my book, are people that have heard me speak. So.
Interesting. And I like the funnel part, of then they get to talk with you. I really like that. That's a smart idea also. And of course, whenever we're aiming towards the next chapter, there's always something we're refining, right, in the present. So what are you currently trying to improve or tighten up in your business?
Just in improving my speaking outreach. I'm going to be very honest. It really, and I'm still fairly new in the speaking industry. I mean, to have actively doing, keynote or, higher level speaking really for about 5.5 years. Now I've been speaking longer than that, but it takes a long time to really build the credibility, where you're consistently every single month, you're doing a higher paid speaking engagement. So that is something that just the whole process of going out and doing a lot of cold outreach. I mean, that is something that is incredibly time consuming. And I know I could do a better job on that. I'm just going to be transparent. And to actually have someone that I work with to help me with that. So right now, what I've really focused on as I continue to scale is those tasks that I really dislike or I'm uncomfortable with. I've hired somebody to help me. And that's all in like the technology piece of it, because like editing my website, that type of thing, if I'm doing like video editing, I could not do that. I mean, I could, but it would be so frustrating for me because my brain just doesn't work that way. So what I have learned is if there are things that you are not very comfortable with and that don't bring you joy, not that it has to be like, "Oh, everything is fabulous all the time," but if it's really something that is just not in your wheelhouse, you need to farm that out to somebody else because you're just creating more negative energy, which doesn't attract positive energy. And it's taking away from what you're really good at.
Uh,
So,
we're talking also about the capacity factor that we were talking earlier,
yep,
right? At
yeah,
some extent, if you only have 24 hours a day, you might find someone to help you, take off your plate some of those tasks that you're not particularly found out, right? You don't really
right.
love it. So yeah, that makes sense. Okay. I want to switch gears for a second and do something different here, a bit more fun. Not that this was not fun, but do something different. If you're down for it, got a quick game for you.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay. We'll look at this through the lens of business investments. Okay. Things like coaching, training, marketing, team, masterminds, you name it. Okay. Pretty
Mhm.
simple. I'll give you 4 prompts and you tell me the first thing that comes to mind. If there's a story behind it, even better. Okay.
Okay.
What's the first business investment you remember making? And let's say about in the coaching space, right?
Hiring a coach.
Mm,
Yeah. I
okay.
mean, I went through, 2 certifications, but then it was, I need a coach. Coaches need coaches. Everybody needs coaches. But yes, I spent a lot of money on education and coaching because we all need that. And to be a better coach, I need to have somebody who can basically illustrate or see where my challenges are and how I can improve and show it better.
That's interesting because one of the qualifications usually to work with a coach is like, is he coachable? Is she coachable? Right. But if the coach is not coachable or doesn't seek to improve themselves, it makes no sense. So that it's practicing what we preach, right? At the end of the day. So yeah, definitely that makes sense. Okay, next one. What's the most recent one you made? Business investment.
The most recent, gosh, there's been multiple. Let's see, probably, well, there were a couple. On the coaching standpoint, I was a part of, in Positive Intelligence, we called it a PQ Wealth Builder series, and it was really how to scale your coaching business. And that was a very sizable investment. And I invested in that and I more than doubled my investment. So it was totally worth it. And then I'm also a part of a mastermind group with my publisher, and it's for authors, speakers, coaches, that type of thing. And so I'm in this monthly mastermind group, which is an investment, and that has been huge in helping me better market my book. And then for both of my books, and most recently my last one that was published late last year, I hired somebody to help me with a bestseller campaign
Mm,
so that I could, rank higher on Amazon. So, yeah.
nice.
So I
Yeah.
invest often. And then
Okay.
I also invest in a community for speakers called Talkadot, and they're incredible, and their training that I have received has just been instrumental on not only how to get leads, but how to communicate with event planners more efficiently, how to just grow your business, just all different things. And it's just been amazing.
Mm, interesting. I like how you
Yeah.
emphasize the community aspect, right?
Hmm.
Because sometimes as a solopreneur, the coaches out there, they feel like they're all alone in the world, right?
Yes, so true. Community
Mm,
is huge. You got to find your tribe. You really
okay.
do.
Moving forward, and I think you kind of answered that, but
Mhm.
what's the best financial business investment you have made and why?
Probably my best financial investment and ongoing is through Positive Intelligence, because I've done multiple trainings through that. The Wealth Builder training was amazing. And just not only what's so great about it is it helps me fine tune my skills. Because when you stop learning, you stagnate. And it's so important, especially if you're going to be coaching and helping others to grow and develop, you have to be growing and developing as well. So I would say that has been
Mm,
the biggest benefit for me.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's one investment you wish you could get your money back on?
That I invested.
Yeah, and you're kind of like, that
Yeah.
was, you know?
So it was for an online interview with this person, former TV celebrity kind of thing. And it was like a PR company. And fortunately, honestly, I only lost $500. I mean, that's not chump change to a lot of people, but it could have been so much worse. And I started to sense that things weren't right and that because they wanted to take substantially more. And I basically pulled it. I didn't even try to go after the 500. But I mean, I would have been invested for multiple thousands afterwards. And I just said no. And I even threatened them with a Better Business Bureau thing, like that it was not entirely legit. And they did some things to cover themselves, but bottom line, it was kind of sketchy. And you just have to do your due diligence. I mean, it is hard when you're a solopreneur and you're scaling and growing, and you're going to be, so many people will reach out to you saying, you need this, you need that. And you just have to be very selective, and you have to have a business plan so that you're not just hemorrhaging money all over the place. So you have to, kind of know what your budget, not kind of know, you have to know what your financial ability is. But then also you've got to be really selective on what you're doing. Anybody could spin something to make it sound like the best thing ever, but then, it ends up not really benefiting you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. There's so much noise, right?
Yes. Yes.
There's on top of it, we have like the next trend, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna dive into this, and the next post on social media is like, X, Y, and Z is dead. Next thing is ... So you gotta laser focus, like you mentioned, and connect with the right people. I think on top of that, talking about that, a shout out to Myrna King, who connected the both of us for this podcast.
Great.
So she's great. Okay.
Love her. Love her.
Looking at those, how has your approach to investing in the business changed over the years, if it has?
I'm more willing to invest, but I'm also more savvy about how I spend my money, because when you're starting out too, it's like, I'm just going to try all these different things and see what sticks. And yes, there has to be some of that to a degree, but we tend to go crazy. So I'm very intentional about where I spend my money now. And I'm not saying I hold on to every little penny. No, I will spend, but I do my due diligence now and make sure that I'm making the right decision. Because yes, you want to get business, but you have to be profitable too.
Right.
That's the thing.
Right.
It's like, it might look like, oh, wow, I'm getting all this business. But if you're hemorrhaging at all of your profits, and you're actually ending up, with a huge loss come tax time, I mean, that's not good either. So
yeah. On top of it, also, it's like you don't know what you don't know, right? It's like sometimes you have to go through some stuff to say
True.
what good looks like and what bad looks like. So that makes perfect sense. Okay. I want to tap into your experience for a second, because people listening can really benefit from this. I mean, you've been in the game long enough to hear all kinds of business advice. Some stick and some really doesn't. So what's one piece of business advice you hear all the time that you think, hey, you know what, this is overrated or misunderstood?
Well, I'm going to say, from example, when you start, you have to have everything all at once. You have to have the perfect website. You have to have somebody doing appointment setting for you. You have to have somebody doing all your social posts for you. I'm not saying you can't get to that point, but when you start out, you can't afford that. I mean, let's be real. You have to figure out where you're going to invest your money. And I ran 8 months without a website, and I had a Calendly so that people could book a call with me. And I just, was networking. And then I invested in appointment setting, or at least connections on LinkedIn. And that really helped me grow. So you just have to really focus on one thing. You can't do everything all at once.
And on the other side, what's a piece of advice you wish more people actually took seriously?
Boy, that's such a good question. Advice that people took more seriously. I know that it doesn't happen overnight. There are so many people out there that said, oh, if you do X, Y, and Z, it's in 2 months, you could have this ginormous business. I'm not saying you couldn't, in some regards, have some success, but to say that you snap your fingers and overnight you're going to have a 6 or 8 figure business, that's ridiculous. It's not going to happen. I mean, it's the average person. I know there are a few exceptions, but you can't, for example, you can't be Tony Robbins overnight. You can't be Brene Brown overnight. You can't be Mel Robbins overnight. It takes time. I mean, they went through periods. I'm sure they would talk to you while they had no money. So And I think things are getting better from that standpoint because there was all the network marketing that was, I think, feeding into and I was in network marketing for years, and it wasn't all bad. It was great in a lot of ways, but it was the get rich quick, do that. And then that just translated into other things. And people just said, well, you can do that, with your coaching if you do X, Y, and Z. Yes, you can be successful, but you can't believe that. I mean, the average person just does not have overnight success. And you have to celebrate the small wins that you have and be very intentional. And there's going to be days where you're like, oh man, why am I doing this? But you will get through that. You will get through it. And it goes back into having the right community of people around you. When you have the right community around you, they're going to help you during those spots. They'll celebrate your successes, but they'll also say, you know what, I was there and you're going to get through this and it's going to be okay.
Yeah, I think it was Warren Buffett who say that the get rich slow schemes are not that popular, right? They're not that sexy.
They're not. No, they're not.
Yeah, I love that. And if someone listening wants to connect with you or follow your work, Lisa, where can people find you and connect with you?
The best place, again, is my website, and it's lisahammett.com. So that's the best place, and you'll see everything about my speaking and my coaching and my books and my social handles, and that's the best place. But yeah, if any of this piques your interest, I would love to chat with you. There's a link, on my website too to book a call, and I encourage you, book a call with me. I'm not like a hardcore salesperson saying, oh, you have to work with me. It's like, hey, if you're curious, let's just chat. Let's have a conversation. I always like talking to people. So,
right.
Yeah.
Okay. There were a few things you shared today that really stuck with me. I would say being so open about the bankruptcy, and the weight loss that at the same time we were talking about how simple it is. It doesn't mean it's easy,
Right.
and sharing that so openly, that was so cool. I really commend you on doing that. And you're talking about hard stuff like it's nothing, and people sometimes they take years to overcome this type of stuff. So yeah, I commend you on that. And
Well,
also,
thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And
A
also,
lot of self-development.
Yeah, I can tell.
A lot of self-development.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you were not being truly in the HR, but you were a leader in the process. I would say that's sometimes even better because you understand the roots, right? You understand the intention behind the process, and not just pushing a process, but understanding what you're looking for as an outcome, So I think that depending on the lens you're looking at, I think that's a plus. And I would like to emphasize that overall, just being so transparent about your story, about how you deal with the hardships, so I commend you on that too. That was pretty cool to watch. And I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate you being here sharing so openly today. It was great having you on.
Well, thank you. This was great conversation.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.